topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
You're listening to the ASQ podcast for a transformational approach to life and leadership, blending soul wisdom with modern insight to create outer impact.
All right. Every time I hear that music, it makes me feel like I'm on a beach drinking a margarita. I love it. Welcome everybody to the ASQ podcast live.
Yeah, welcome everyone. This is going to be a very special segment on the ASQ podcast, in which we are going to be talking about a lot of beautiful things that are coming up in the new year. In particular, our Coherence membership and what that entails and what it means for our date and time. So yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to be able to expose our audience to what it is that we do.
It is. I love that. So we're talking about a transformational approach to the new year too, right? We want to talk a little bit about that. And I wanted to kind of focus on some of the issues, as we have gone through creating a lot of our methodologies and curriculum and whatnot. We do a lot of research. And so in order to create this foundation and introduce people to the things that we're doing, I wanted to focus on a couple of ideas of fragmentation.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of just talk about the state that we're walking into in the new year, right? Or that we're walking into at any point.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the new year, just anytime, right? And I'm going to do this by sharing a couple of stats. All right. So I'm cheating because I have my computer up because I wasn't going to be able to remember. Anyways. Okay. So loneliness and disconnection, right? Emotional overload and cognitive fatigue, identity drift in a performative culture, and the cycle of quick fixes were the top 4 things that sort of were like common themes in the research, right? So let's start with loneliness and disconnection. I think that a lot of people are experiencing this. And in fact, there are 61% of US adults that have reported feeling lonely regularly. Okay. So there's about 259, just to bring this home, there's 259 million adults in the US, and 61% constitutes roughly 158 million adults that are experiencing loneliness.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is.
That's over half.
That's definitely more than half. Yeah. Over a lot more than half. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found this other interesting statistic or quote from the Surgeon General, who calls loneliness a public health crisis. And that the health impact is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so I think it's really important to understand that is a really dominant or a prevalent fragmented, I'm trying to find the word for it. Help me. Like it's a really dominant, it's something that a lot of people experience, but they don't talk about.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So let's talk now about and I want to make it clear that, because I don't want to it's not about shaming anybody, because I think sometimes when we have these conversations, it feels like there's some shame wrapped up in it. And I don't want to come across that way. I want it to be understood that we don't make a conscious choice to be disconnected or lonely, right? All right.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you to say something. People will disconnect because they feel overwhelmed, right? And so they just shut people out and they don't realize what they're doing subconsciously. That's how I look at it, right?
Well, modern technology, particularly with social media and those things, where the original intention was to make people more connected, right? But some of the things that it failed to recognize is our ability as humans to base our lives based on comparisons, right? So when you are in constant comparison with someone and that constant fight for an audience or for likes and for views, right? what ends up happening is this constant chase, right? So consequently, we have lost our ability to commune as individuals, and not digital connection is not the same as physical connection.
Yeah,
it's not the same as interacting with another person. It's not the equivalent of it. We are social creatures by nature, but when we have created a society in which individualism taken to the extreme, right, which is the foundation of our Western society, and I do believe in the individual. However, when we take that to the extreme without having the proper equilibrium, we get what we get, right? Marriages are not the same anymore. There's not an emphasis on it in that essence of connection. There's this expediency when it comes to things. We are looking for quick fixes and experiences, but very seldom take the time to spend with one another. So when it comes to loneliness, one of the biggest challenge, particularly when it comes to like middle age individuals, the families are gone, the empty nesters, the career is peaking, and you have no one to talk to about that. You could go to therapy, but sometimes you don't want to figure out, because now what happens next,
right? Which is why I was saying I don't think it's necessarily a conscious decision, because things happen that create loneliness in your life.
It's not really a conscious decision. It's a reaction. Yeah,
exactly.
It's a reaction.
That's the word. Okay, good. So let's talk also about, let's talk about emotional overload. And you touched on the societal factors and the idea of comparison. And I think that's important, but emotional overload and cognitive fatigue. Like that's a big one too, because I think that Americans are more stressed out today than they have ever been. In fact, stress levels have risen 20% since 2020, right? And 76% experience symptoms of stress overload, like sleep issues, irritability, difficulty focusing. And then there's that digital overstimulation, which you just referred to, that leads to cognitive fragmentation.
Yeah.
So it's that. And then, of course, that then leads to the disconnect and the loneliness, right? Because that's not, like you're saying, a way for us to connect.
Correct.
It's not the same as being in front of each other, which is why you're so like always stressed on having meetings in person. So the bottom line is that our systems are overloaded, right? And we don't know how to deal with that. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like that's huge. And it does. I mean, I know when I'm like scrolling and looking at stuff and comparing and looking and here and there, like I feel that disconnection inside. I feel disconnected just to myself. Yeah,
well, it brings a very important existential question, right? Like, what is the point of life? What is the point of life? Is it constantly to be chasing this ideal of who we are? This perfect state, this perfect idea, you see it in an idea becoming this is what we're striving for, right? So if that idea is not met, what is it? What is success? All those things that we have collective agreed that we all should look for has actually become the very thing that is destroying us from the inside out. Things like, productivity, I'm constantly need to be productive. I'm constantly need to be in a state of achievement. I'm constantly need to constantly improve myself.
Constantly
improve myself. So when you
then always having that feeling of you get to this level and then it's not enough.
It's never enough.
Never enough.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's more.
And there's more stress and more pressure. Thus the 20% increase since 2020. It's interesting because I feel like, and there's a point in here where I talk about it, but I can't remember where we talk about the mental health issues that are surrounding that, right? And in a lot of cases, people do need therapy. We're not advocating for not going to therapy or getting mental health help, right? But there's also their underlying factor that we're not getting in touch with.
Yeah. Well, it's not so much, I mean, you can't isolate and pinpoint to one particular thing. Right, as a consequence of all these issues that we have. And mental health is a very broad term, right? There's mental illness, right? But then there's also how do we interact with the world? We understand that things are going to happen, and a lot of things are out of our control. But is mental health the acceptance of that, or is mental health coping that we don't want to accept that this is the reality of life?
That's a good way to
right?
put it.
Because again, is we say all these different things, and are we really thinking about the things that we're saying and the things that we're doing? Because nothing is just this happened because of this. A human being is a very complex organism, let alone a society, right? And a lot of the problems that we're seeing are systemic because we choose it. Because the system is nothing more than a collection of individuals, right? So when we're looking at all these different scenarios, we're looking to all these different indicators that are telling us, number one, there's something individually that we need to adjust, but also something collectively that we need to adjust. And because it's the way that we look at life. That's the main idea.
Right. So let's talk about identity drift in a performative culture, right? I think that's important because we talk a lot about leadership. The data is 72% of adults feel pressure to constantly optimize themselves. And I know we've already talked about that, but that's 72% of people who you get to a certain place and it's just never enough. And like the stress levels that are associated with that, right? Social comparison has significantly increased identity confusion, which I thought was really interesting. And midlife adults report feeling more off purpose than any other demographic. Like not having a purpose, not feeling like they know what's going on, which leads to a lot of the conversations that we've had about midlife and feeling that tug of something just doesn't fit, doesn't feel good, something's off, right? What do you think about that? Like, what do you,
again,
when you hear these, I know you know about these statistics, but
when I hear this, number one, I think about what does it mean to be a human being? First and foremost, who am I? What am I doing here? These are philosophical questions that are very simple and very challenging to answer because we are a response to our environment, right? So when you look at 72% of adults feel pressure to optimize themselves, like what are we optimizing for? What are we getting for? What purpose? What is that driver, right? And that driver is that sense of belonging, right? That sense of being acknowledged and being recognized, that recognition, because we want to be recognized as someone, right? When you think about midlife adults, right? Throughout our life, we have been taught that our purpose is what we do, right? So the moment that you no longer do what you have worked all your life to be, then what are you? Exactly. Of course, you're going to have some, I don't know what I'm doing. Right. If you're no longer a parent because your child has grown up and your identity has been based on that, then what do you become? Let's say your business failed, or you're struggling financially and you have to file for bankruptcy, or your identity is tied up to what that is. So it's that idea of how do we approach life? How do we look at life? We are looking as means to end. And then what is the end? Am I optimizing to what? Right. To perform more? Okay. What am I performing more for? Right. To get more things? Okay. If I'm getting all those more things, what does that make me? That I feel secure? Most of the times we haven't really dig deep enough to know truly what it is that we want. Right. But then as a society, because, and again, we're doing the same things because we have to market, because all these things, because I have to get the latest thing, because if I don't have the latest things, then who am I? We begin to have this cycle, right? That is looking for things that are outside of us.
That's right. And lastly, let's talk about the cycle of quick fixes, as we also talked about that, right? Which I think is interesting because that is exactly what we do as a society, right? What can we do, to address this situation quickly and just put it beneath us, or, sweep it under the rug, right? So 80% of resolutions, since we're talking about going into the new year, I wanted to highlight this. 80% of resolutions fail by February. Okay. The self-help industry is a $14 billion It's $14 billion industry, right? And it's rising, yet our well-being continues to drop. And I don't have that number.
Yep.
And then dopamine-driven novelty keeps us chasing solutions without changing.
Yep.
So we're trying to fix issues and symptoms, right? With hacks, trends, and resolutions, but the root of the issue, the problem, continues to be swept under the rug.
Yep. And what is that, right? Again, how do we ask the question, who am I? What is the purpose of life? And you could justify the purpose of life as this constant push to improve and this constant push to optimize, right? But those things have a cost, right?
Yes.
They have a price tag that is not just equated into finances, and it shows in the way in which we are overly stressed, which in all these different facets in which everybody's bursting at the seam,
chasing for happiness that is not there. You know.
I don't think that's what we're chasing for, to be honest with you. If you think about it, right, you could be just happy having an ice cream and spending time watching a movie, right? But right, is that really what we're looking for? I think that what we're really looking for is that sense of recognition that we are somebody. And at the deep end of it all, we are struggling in this day and age to define what that looks like, right? And then we assign ourselves the identity of the bad things, our trauma, our this, our that, my status in society. We begin to assign our identity to those things, and those things are fleeting. And this is kind of like the challenge of what we have.
Interesting. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you before we go into the commercial break is, if fragmentation is so common, right? If it's obviously with all of this data and these quick fixes don't work, then what do we need to do? What actually creates sustainable change? Yeah.
Well, sustainable change starts really to understanding all aspects of who you are, right? And the way that we do that is by revisiting an old concept and redefining it for our future. And the concept is that of the soul, right? Understanding really what that means. And again, most people will have an adverse reaction to that word, but the reality is that it's a concept, and that concept has a meaning. There is a foundational understanding that needs to be revisited when it comes to that concept. And that's the idea of the way back to being incoherent, to seeing, living from a better place, and also to be able to impact everything around us. So when we come back after this commercial, we are going to get into exactly what that looks like and why is it a new transformational approach to how we live life and we impact culture. So we'll be right back after these brief commercials.
You're listening to the ASQ podcast, a transformational approach to life and leadership. Too many of us chase clarity but feel scattered. What if your challenge isn't failure, but the threshold before expansion? Each month, we gather live for a transformational webinar where contraction becomes coherence. Register today and receive your Soul GPS journal. Begin your journey within. Scan the QR code or visit asqempowerment.com.
At ASQ, we need one platform to do it all. Funnels, emails, forms, and automations. That's why we run our entire ecosystem on Go High Level. It is the tool that saves us time and builds real connections with our audience. We believe in it, we use it, and we recommend it. Start your free trial through our affiliate link today.
We don't just find podcast guests, we find aligned voices. That's why ASQ uses Podmatch to connect with leaders and creators worldwide. It's how we've built relationships that shape life and culture. If you want meaningful conversations, join through our affiliate link today or scan the QR code. Find your match on Podmatch.
Leaders are burning out. Teams are disengaged. Cultures are fragmenting. ASQ Empowerment transforms leadership and culture from the inside out. Our Coherence quest bridges ancient wisdom with modern neuroscience, helping organizations align, adapt, and thrive. Start with an organizational snapshot assessment. So, visit now at asqempowerment.com and schedule your briefing today. ASQ Empowerment. Lead your life. Shape your culture. Begin within.
Welcome back. You're listening to the ASQ podcast with Dr. Jessie and Omar Ferreira, a transformational approach to life and leadership.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So now I want to talk about what you ended with, which is the idea of a transformational approach to life, right? So we talked about why resolutions fail, right? Resolutions operate at a level of behavior, not identity.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Willpower depends on your emotional state, and that's unstable unless you're in alignment, right? And then sustainable change comes from identity-based transformation. So let's talk about that, because if identity-based change is more sustainable, then what do we need to do to get to that point in creating sustainable change in our lives?
Exactly. Well, who am I, right? That identity. And that's why it's important to revisit that concept of the soul, right? So the soul has 4 components, and the way that we model it is, number one, we model it as in ancient wisdom, things like Kabbalah and things like Hermetic principles and things of that nature, but also Plato's definition of the soul, right? And the idea is this, our modern society focuses particularly on logic and mechanics, right? We are mechanical beings, right? Oh, if you feel stressed, just work on your breathing. If you feel, anxious, go for a walk.
Go meditate.
And all this stuff. So we look at ourselves primarily as intellectual beings. Emotions are wrong, right? You shouldn't be feeling emotion. You should be stoic, and you should have not an awareness of that you have to disregard it, particularly for men. You feel emotions is like, man up, move forward.
Well, that's a really prevalent thing. Yes,
it is. And it is. I mean, in the corporate world, it's the same way. In our work environments, it's like, suck it up, buttercup.
And it's not even for men only. I mean,
no,
women are
not at all.
too.
Not at all. I mean, and I think that we're living in this hyper strong and environment, but emotions are important to understand. So when we redefine in the soul, first thing that we have to understand that we're not just logical. If we were logical, we wouldn't be dealing with all those situations, because if you look at those numbers, all over 50%, all over 60%, if we're so data-driven as a society, then we realize, oh, wait a minute, as a society, we are doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is logic, right?
And because we focus so much on data, you'd think that would be
it will be,
right?
Yeah.
It will be like ding, ding, ding.
Ding, 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 right? So then what do we do instead?
That's a good point. I never really thought about that. Like, if we're so data driven and all about the numbers and numbers and numbers, why are we not looking at 61% of US adults feeling and experiencing loneliness?
Yes.
And more than half.
Suicide rates at the higher level that ever existed, right? The all these symptoms are all there, right? So wow. So number one, first, we are making the mistake that we are only logical, intellectual thinking beings, right? That we are mechanical, right? And that's a fallacy. It's a fallacy to see ourselves just as that. I'm not disputing that those things, that the logic and intellect are important. What I'm saying is that's not all that we are. So when we revisit this concept, this ancient concept of the soul from both the Plato's point of view and then all this ancient wisdom's point of view, the first thing that struck me was this idea of appetites or our drives, right? It's understanding the core drives of what drives us as human beings is the engine that drives us, the need for power, the need for recognition, the need to feel safe. You look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the foundational needs are extremely important to understand, not to understand just for the point of acquiring them, but from the point of view to understanding that those are the things that drive us, right? Because again, why do you want all these things? We want all these things. It's not because, they're functionable, right? Because if it was just that, why are you buying a Ferrari if the function of a car is, and you're not a race car driver, if the function of a car is to take you from point A to point B?
Right.
Why do you do that? Because recognition.
Right.
Because you want the status, because you want to be recognized as somebody important. Again, I'm not saying that is incorrect.
Right.
I'm not saying that that's wrong.
Right. I want to
Right?
make sure that we're clear about
Yes.
that.
What I'm saying is that you have to be 100% clear as to what drives that. And what drives that is an impulse for recognition.
Mhm.
It's an impulse for us to be of importance.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
And that's good to understand.
Mhm.
Right. Another one of the things that drives us is power. Again, these are power. It's not a negative thing. Everything in the universe has that energy and that drive for power, autonomy, right? To be able to be a self-driven person,
Mhm.
to be able to stand firm, right? And have agency. Those things are important.
Right.
Those things are essential for us to be in a human being. However, if we want to get all those things at the expense of others,
Yeah.
then it becomes a problem.
Right. So it's
Right?
understanding your motivation.
Right.
on-
And this happens a lot in leadership, right? In leadership, because I want to be recognized as the one, I'm going to assert my power over you.
Yeah.
Right. And these things are the things that drive us. Again, they're not bad.
Right.
They're primal.
Right.
These are the primal things that make us a human being, a complete human. So we have to understand that.
So can you talk really quick, because I think the power one is, it just makes sense, and that's like an obvious,
Mhm.
right? And to some degree.
Mhm.
But talk about it from that position of loneliness and disconnection.
Yeah.
And how important it is for us to understand that we are fragmented individuals.
Mhm.
And
So loneliness and disconnection, right? The what's missing,
Mhm.
right, in that aspect is joy, right?
Mhm.
How do you gain joy when you're lonely? The idea is, well, you could go out into nature,
Mhm.
you could go visit a friend,
Yep.
you could try to, and requires vulnerability to be able to shift that polarity of feeling disconnected and alone by taking a counteraction that is going to make that into balance. Sometimes you need that isolation, that solitude, as a way to recharge yourself and as a way to create new ideas.
Mhm.
But then you have to swing that around, because you can't stay in that state always.
Right.
You have to be, and this is the issue. The issue is that we don't have enough power, agency, to see that we have to balance these things out, right?
Right.
So drives, important to understand. The next thing is to understand your emotions. Emotions are like the dashboard of a car, right? And the dashboard of the car just tells you what is happening on the engines or in the whole entire system of the car,
Right.
right?
Signal. Right.
The signal,
Mhm.
right? But then we become our emotions. I'm angry.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
No, what the question is, what's happening with anger? Well, anger is I don't have enough agency to express what I'm feeling,
Mhm.
right? Or I'm angry because somebody stopped me from expressing my agency,
Mhm.
right? And then if you follow that, then you could understand, okay, that is something that happened in this situation. How can I give myself agency
Mhm.
to express what I want?
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
And then what happens at a lot of the times is, I'll give you an example of something that happens in my experience. You work at a place, right? And you're experiencing a really hard time. You're doing things that you don't really want to do,
Mhm.
but you have to, because, right, your safety,
Mhm.
right, the primal needs of shelter, food will be,
Yeah.
right, in jeopardy.
I was going to say, yeah.
So I'm going to quash my agency. And as a consequence, I become more and more disdainful,
Resentful.
resentful,
Mhm.
apathetic.
Mhm.
It just happens like that, because even though you know that you shouldn't be there, if I quit this situation, then I'm putting all my safety needs in danger,
Right.
right? I'm jeopardizing that part.
Mhm.
Even though everything else sucks, I have to do this because of my family.
Yeah.
I have to do this because of that. And that's why you see so many things happen in the world, that people can't stand up for stuff, because even though they know that this is wrong. I mean,
Mhm.
I had experiences. Hey, listen, I know it's wrong, but I got to feed my family, right?
Mhm.
Now, are these people evil? No, they're doing it to protect a basic drive, even though they're wrong. And some people are more courageous and they stand up and they say, no, this could happen at the detriment, right? And we've seen that's happening. But then what are you, if you stand up, your fear, number one, your basic needs, but also that sense of recognition, because then you could be isolated from a setting, from work, from things of that nature. So again, your emotions are just telling you where you need to go. This engine is having this challenge, right? This desire is not, it's either overexposed or it's not being paid attention enough, right? Your intellect is the one that is able to have these conversations like we're having. Oh, this is happening here. I need to bring this back into balance. How do I do that? Right? So your intellect is important because your intellect is the one thing that shows you what's going on, but it's also the thing that tells you this is where I want to go, right? So you need to have that. Coherence happens when you are all those three things come in alignment. That right there is what we call position zero. And position zero is that when you completely understand these parts and you set out into the world to live from that place. And when you live from that place in which everything is balanced, right? What happens to you is that you go to another set of drives which are more about creating, right? Looking at the big picture and seeking truth, universal truths, right? To be transcendent. And transcendence is not this idea of escapism, that you're going to go ahead and levitate and you're going to go ahead and shift everything around. But transcendence is this idea that you are a center of expression for everything, for the universe, for God, whatever you want to call it. Right. You are that point of expression. And because you are understanding that as a conscious individual, sometimes you have to press the gas and sometimes you have to press the brake. Right. And you are the one directing when this needs to happen. Right. And that is because now you're living from your center. Right. And now am I talking that might be your drive to become a billionaire because you're going to improve certain aspects? That could be it. I can't tell people what that will look like to them. I know what it looks like to me. What it looks like to me is ASQ. Right. And being able to share this, and it's been able to comprehend and be able to share this and teach it and guide people through it. That's what we discovered as a consequence of all that. Right. And sometimes we have to be very powerful, right? We have to step on our agency. And sometimes we have to set that back to allow other people to be, right? So the idea is the more you understand about all these four components of what the soul is, and this is what we call the coherence vehicle in the terms,
and
right?
integrate
that, you're living from a different place. Now, this is not a destination, which is what a lot of self-help books want you to think, that you are going to be fixed. Right. This is a process. Once you understand that, the process that continues is more unfoldment.
Yes.
Right. And this is when our PEP framework comes into be. You gain a broader perspective and different perspective on how a transformational approach to life, right, based on your experiences, right, and that approach to life, that philosophy of how you're going to live, is a spiral up. Right. It's not this thing about constantly transforming and improving. You don't have to improve. That's not the point. It's an unfoldment. Right. Right. It's like a seed. Yep. Within that seed, everything exists. So as you begin to discover other aspects of yourselves, because you're balancing and you go out and you attempt to create something new, or something that you want to express, you begin to unfold everything that you are, which is, again, a way for the universe to know itself. And only us are able to do that. And some people are very powerful, so they make us believe that their way is the only way. And that's a fallacy, right? I love the Declaration of Independence. I love what it stands for. I love that idea of a potential, an idea. Right. But if you look at it, we don't live like that. Everybody's has the right to life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. I don't particularly like the word happiness, but I like the word fulfillment. And that fulfillment comes from understanding all these different aspects of you, living from that place, a place in which all your drives are in equilibrium. Your emotions tell you which engines need to be balanced. You're using your intellect to adjust that engine, but also to direct where you want to go from this cohesive point of view, which is transformative, because now you could lead your life better.
Yep.
Right? You could impact your culture much, much better because you are able to do all these different things. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then consequently, right, it has a ripple effect on everything around us.
Correct.
Right? That's why the foundation of our Western culture is so powerful, because it really starts with the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens from time to time, which is what's happening right now, is that we give our agency away.
Well, that is obvious in the data
Mhm.
that I just shared.
Yeah.
Because we don't understand our motivations. We
Mhm.
don't understand our drives.
Yep.
So let me ask you this then, because I think this is really important. What is it that someone would gain?
Mhm.
What would they gain from being part of this masterclass?
So the goal of our masterclass, right, is to bring awareness to the forefront,
Mhm.
right? To help you first understand, right, that you are it. Again, I go back to that Carl Sagan's quote, and it's such a powerful quote. We are a way for the universe to know itself. Okay, so how does the universe operate? It operates by drives, right? Emotions, which are reactions, will tell us whether to fight or flight, right? And when we are in awareness, when we use our conscious awareness, we are able to determine which direction we need to go for us to be safe, right? I'm just giving you that example, right?
Without being reactive.
Yeah. But we are the only, besides beavers, we are the only creature, right? The only being that we know of so far that could really, really, truly create like the universe does. Look at where we are right now and the things that we have discovered by going within, right? So just as we are able to see these numbers and identify that it is there is a challenge, a challenge to overcome,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just as we are able to see that and understand that, we as individuals, right, could begin to change that first within us. Right? I don't believe in revolutions, because revolutions is what? You start at a point and you end up back at the same place.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing. It starts within. And when people live from that point of view, number one, it's scary for society, right? Because you don't want people to live from that point of view because you can't control them.
Oh.
Number one. But number two, it really gives you the agency to be able to create places and create spaces in which people thrive.
Exactly.
Right?
And when they're in communion, when they're working cohesively, when they're
and what you
when they're in joy.
Yeah, when they're enjoying. What you're seeing right now is something that was predicted by Chief Seattle in one of his speeches. You know, we destroy so much based on we created so much based on our intellect that what we have created as a consequence is instead of living, what we do now is survive.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a direct consequence by us not living in a tune with nature, our nature, because we feel that it's beneath us to accept the fact that we have all these soul components, which were already determined thousands of years ago.
Right.
We've known this.
When we don't want to admit that we're human.
And consequently, part of our evolution as humans is that we were animals.
Yeah.
Right. And we still respond to those urges, those drives, and we operate from there. But no, not us. We are more sophisticated than that. Right? And the idea, we have to acknowledge that those are the things. The more that we acknowledge those things, because again, the problem with midlife in particular is that we have lived and we have been told all our lives that in order for you to be someone, you have to be a professional. The moment that stops, then what are you? But you only created a function within a society. That's what you perform. You were a parent. We were parents, but we're not that anymore.
Right.
Right. So then what becomes of us? Right. And the idea is to understand that there is an evolution. We play certain roles at certain times, but the role, it's not our identity.
Right.
the role is a temporary function that we play, but what lies underneath is this thing that is constantly evolving.
Right.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing, is that the identity change is what has to happen, you know, and understanding that these things that we're doing in society, being a parent, being a child, being a wife, being a husband, is not our identity.
And it's not an identity change. It's a recognition of the totality of what we are.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Acknowledging that we are this made up of all these parts that you just talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as we unfold, right, because again, we don't need to transform. We don't need to self-improve. We don't need to do that. Right. It's an unfoldment. We begin to unfold. And again, these are not new concepts. These are ancient concepts. You know, you read it and you see it and you educate yourself on it. And we just wanted to compact it, bring it together. So the goal of this membership is to be able for you and the participants, the masterclass, is for you to be able to understand these portions of yourself and then be able to put them into practice and begin to awaken all this stuff that's inside of you, and then use your intellect to be able to balance it out.
Right. I love that. I think that the masterclass, you know, basically all of what we're talking about is just to have a firm understanding of who we really are. Whenever I think about what it is, like all the experiences that I've gone through, the biggest thing that I can take away from going through our methodology, right, is that idea of, wow, for the first time, like I really truly feel connected with who I am. Because you asked that question, who am I? Who are you? You know what I mean? And that's an important question to ask. And oftentimes I think if we're being honest with ourselves, we really don't have the answer to that until we're
begin to really, really explore it.
Yes. Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah, perfect. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after this to conclude this conversation.
You're listening to the ASQ podcast, a transformational approach to life and leadership. Coming this December, A Soul's Quest, a transformational approach to life and leadership. A book that bridges science, wisdom, and lived experience so you can lead with coherence. Don't miss the launch. Join the waiting list today, scan the QR code, or visit asqempowerment.com.
At ASQ, we believe every creative deserves a safe space to share. That's why we use and proudly recommend Gnostic TV. It's where your content won't be silenced and your vision can flourish. Sign up through our affiliate link and be part of this Freedom Center platform. Create boldly on Gnostic TV. Across boardrooms, nonprofits, and communities, too many leaders are quietly burning out. They know what's not working, but not how to turn inertia into momentum. That's where I come in. I help leaders, fathers, and organizations move from quiet crisis into coherence, so cultures can thrive from the inside out. Book me today at asqempowerment.com and bring coherence to your next event.
Welcome back. You're listening to the ASQ podcast with Dr. Jessie and Omar Ferreira, a transformational approach to life and leadership.
All right, welcome back. I think I wanted to say one thing, and I want to say it before I forget it, is this is the first time that we've actually really talked about it on the live about what we really are doing with ASQ, which I think is really important to understand. I mean, there's not the only thing that we're doing, but it's one of the things that this is our methodology or a portion of it. And I think it's really powerful. You know, I want to make sure that people understand that we're not offering a fix, right?
No.
Which is what you alluded to earlier.
There's nothing to fix.
Right. It's literally just a framework for that unfoldment.
Yes.
That you're talking about, that transformational approach to life, right? And so if you're feeling tired of the loneliness, disconnected, not knowing where you're going, feeling empty, you know, that fragmentation that we were talking about, and you're ready for deeper alignment, please, please, please consider the masterclass. It's the Coherence Quest Masterclass, and you can find out more information on asqempowerment.com. You can book a discovery call, and there's a lot of other resources on the website as well, but book a discovery call. We can have a conversation to see if we're a fit. And
and actually the process is we in January we'll have two groups, 8 per individuals each. That is the capacity that we're able to manage. And there is an application to fill out, because I'll be honest with you, we are not therapists. That's not our goal. we are not even coaches. Although I am a certified coach, we're not coaches. Our objective is to guide individuals because we walk this path. We understand that some of the perils that are there, and we are continuing our process of evolution as individuals. If you ever looked at the history of ASQ, when we started as a podcast just to talk about some concepts and idea into what it has become, it has been an evolution, and this is our time and our moment of unfoldment to be able to share the concept that we have discovered and learned throughout our lives and by different sources. So again, if you are interested, you could go to our website, ASQ Empowerment Service, apply for the cohort. There will be 2 groups of 8 individuals each, starting in the second week in January. And the idea is for you to not fix yourself, but remember who you are.
Oh, I like that. That's it. Remember who you are. All right. Anything else we'd like to share?
No, that is all that I got.
All right. Do the outro. Do our outro.
Okay.
Lead your life.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for being here and joining us today. And again, remember to lead your life,
shape your culture,
and begin within. Have a great afternoon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the ASQ podcast. Remember to lead your life, shape your culture, begin within. Visit us at asqempowerment.com and join the movement.